Yo, good morning. Welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB strategy show. Hope you guys had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. Hopefully it was nice. We're back Monday, big slate, basketball as well. I tell you what, Greg, by the way, I'm Dave Loughran. That's Greg Ehrenberg. Glad you guys are with us. Take a second, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below and hit us up. You want to listen in podcast form? We're out there. You know where to find us. I don't know if it's a sadistic element of my personality, Greg. And I know this is a basketball or baseball show, but there was some type of rewarding feeling that I got out of seeing Denver win back-to-back games on the road. And here's why. Not because I have anything against Minnesota, right? Not because I'm a Nuggets fan, neither of which are true. Not because I don't love Anthony Edwards and the grit of that Timberwolves team, but I have never seen a fan base go from so dejected to so wildly and irresponsibly cocky in the matter of 6 postseason games as I have seen the Minnesota Timberwolves fan base on Twitter. And boy, have they been pummeled back down to earth over the last couple of games.
I'm just happy to see Eric upset. That's really all it is for me. He's upset. I'm happy.
Did you not notice this though? Like, you had people out there that are just like, yep, this is the dynasty we've been waiting. Who knows? Maybe they will be. But like, this is the dynasty we've been waiting for. We're going to dispatch the Nuggets in 4. I'm not saying all Wolves fans are out there. I bet there's a lot of cautiously pessimistic Wolves fans, such as I am with Philadelphia, where you're like, yeah, we're up 2-0, but I don't feel particularly good about that. But the vocal ones, man, reality slaps hard sometimes, brother. How you feeling?
Yeah. Hey, like I said before, as long as Eric's upset, I'm happy. And I'm sure he's very upset today.
You had food poisoning over the weekend? Not
all
good.
Worth it just to see actually, I have futures bets on the Timberwolves, so I would prefer that they lose. But at the I would prefer they win. But at the very least, like I said before, if I have to sacrifice, a significant amount of money to make Eric a little bit miserable, is it worth it? Yeah, most likely.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Oh man, The Sims was feeding me so much Alec Manoah yesterday. And I ended up capping him at 35%. They were trying to give me it was giving me 60% in The Sims. Still had a good day, but did you play yesterday?
I did. I played yesterday because, like you said, I had food poisoning. I didn't like my mom went to my grandma's with my sister. I was physically incapable of going, so I was like, hey, I might as well just sit in here and play DFS all day.
How much Manoah did you get to?
I think I had 28%, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think I had around 30, 35, but man, that was a spot where, usually like players in The Sims, even if they're good, they still have negatively, simulated ROI, like player ROI, right? Manoah was like plus 7% or something, ended up having, that was basically his last start. If he didn't come out and put up good numbers, he probably wasn't starting next time out, but he did. He was strong. Fun slate. You got another big slate today. We'll dive into it. From a pitching perspective, it is kind of funny because we've had just an insane amount of great pitching options over the past couple of weeks. It feels like every time we do a slate, there's still like 5 or 6 really strong options. Today, you have Imanaga against Atlanta. You have Ronaldo Lopez against the Cubs, Mitch Keller against Milwaukee, Kirby against Kansas City. I don't think this is a particularly bad pitching slate, but I will say that there are some good pitchers who are in bad matchups.
Yeah, and one other thing that I want to add too, just putting a bow on the Manoah thing, because I actually have a betting angle that I like a lot, sort of. The reason I say sort of is I think that Manoah is such a good bet for comeback player of the year because it's just one of those storylines that voters would gravitate towards. The problem, though, is no books have Manoah odds listed right now. But I'm checking every couple of hours, see if a book posts an Alec Manoah comeback player of the year line. If anybody sees one of those and it's a long odds bet, I think it's very worthwhile.
Are there any comeback player of the year odds out there?
Yes, just he's not on the list of players.
So who's at the top right now?
Tyler O'Neill in the American League and Edwin Diaz in the National League.
Okay. My my buddy, I was at him and his wife's house, our neighbors, they had their daughter's christening yesterday, and we had a party afterwards, and they party. And we're talking sports the whole time, all of them big into it. His dad was telling me that he grabbed Ranger Suarez Cy Young at like, I think it was plus 20,000 to start the season or something like that. I'm thinking, man, that was a heck of a bet, man. With 200 to 1, Rangers 8 to 1 now to win the National League Cy Young. He's behind only Wheeler, Glasnow, and Shota Imanaga. Dude, Suarez has been insanely good. It's crazy to see that. Not that you guys care, I'm talking Phillies here, but you have 2 Philly pitchers with the four with shortest odds, and the 4 of the shortest odds to win the Cy Young. But he's been awesome, man.
Yeah, that whole rotation has been. I know Wheeler kind of got lit up yesterday. He was one guy that kind of ruined the slate yesterday because he was my most rostered player on the slate yesterday. I had him in something like half my lineup, Zach Wheeler, and he took down those half of them. But yeah, I mean, you've got towards the top of the Cy Young odds. Zach Wheeler's there. Ranger Suarez is there. You've also got Aaron Nola somewhere near the top. So it's been a loaded Phillies rotation. It sets up very well for the playoffs.
For sure. Yeah, it's been fun. But Einsteinium, good place to start. And like I said, guys, if you don't mind, atone for your sins. Monday morning, hit that thumbs up. Show us some love around here. I know basketball's still going on, but baseball's fun. Einsteinium said, Laffy, play Imanaga until he gets blown up. Should be the Cy Young favorite. Well, look, we just talked about it right now. Really, he's 6 to 1. Wheeler's 3 to 1. Glasnow's plus 550. Imanaga's been awesome. Matter of fact, I did the show with Matt last week, and I was saying how I still have no issues running Imanaga out there against San Diego in that spot. He ended up having a strong game. Yes, he was expensive. Wasn't, slate breaking, and it's not like anyone was getting overweight on him in that spot. It was a pretty deep slate. But yes, he has been stellar. There's no doubt about it. And the question now becomes, Greg, like, all right, so do you get leverage on like an 11% Imanaga? He's 10% top 2 pitcher probability, 11% owned. He's going up against Atlanta. I understand that this Atlanta team does have some strikeouts, but righty heavy lineup. Going up against the lefty here today, they're striking out 20.6% of the time against left-handed pitching, 9.2% walk rate, 120 WRC plus, which I believe is top 5 in baseball. So, I mean, look, let's not sugarcoat it. As good as he's been, this is a tough spot in Atlanta for Shota Imanaga.
Yeah, the issue that I have primarily with getting to Imanaga is it's a brutal matchup. He's pitching on the road against the Atlanta Braves. And as good as he has been from a real life perspective, I put out a thing where I was just like, hey, if the season ended right now, this is who I would pick to win each of the awards. Somebody also asked me, who would you pick for the divisions? It's like, well, that's very defined. There's just teams that are in first in the divisions, but neither here nor there. I picked Imanaga. If the season ended right now, he would be my choice to win this Cy Young award. But he's not the most prolific strikeout pitcher. He's gotten to be pretty expensive. He also has this matchup on the road against the Atlanta Braves. So all those things being put together, and also it's not like he's 5% owned or 3% owned in this spot. He has double-digit ownership. So all the numbers for Imanaga are insane. 1.08 ERA, 2.31 expected ERA. The strikeout rate has been solid, but not like 30+% or anything like that, 26% strikeout rate. I think he's going to be a pitcher who's difficult for me to get to on this slate.
Among the guys with the highest salaries, because like I could go from, I mean, I don't want to start down there at like 8,100, but if you go from say Brady Singer and up, right, within that, there's like $1,000 block of guys from 88 to 97. Ronaldo Lopez, the highest priced pitcher on the slate on DraftKings, and we can dig into FanDuel a little bit too. But Singer 8,800 against Seattle, 29% owned. I know you. I know there are always spots where you find a guy that's, good, but maybe not great. That's maybe overperforming relative to the numbers that we've seen thus far and has significant negative leverage. Feels like that is Singer. He has been good though. He's striking guys out at 25%. That's good enough for me. He's against Seattle. He's also by far the highest owned expensive pitcher on this slate. And it's not him. Sorry, not by far. Him and George Kirby are the two. Then you get to an unowned Mitch Keller at 9,200. Imanaga at 9,300 at 10%, and Ronaldo Lopez 9,700 at 10%. How do you kind of prioritize these guys, just knowing that two of them are getting a ton of ownership and the others aren't getting much at all?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Looking at the lineups that I have built in my first run of the Sims, I'm getting to a lot of cheap pitchers. I'm really not getting to very much of the expensive guys relative to their ownership. So I have exposure to George Kirby. I have exposure to Brady Singer, but it's in the teens for both of them for me. So as a result, with them being, what was it, 29% ownership. Yeah, the 29% ownership to Brady Singer, 27% to George Kirby. Like I have them in 14 and 16% of my lineups. I'm getting to a little bit more of George Kirby than Springer. Kirby is the pitcher I have the most of on the high end, but I'm still well underweight to the field on him. So to answer your question, if I'm picking one of these guys, it's George Kirby, but my lineups are skewing much more towards the cheaper pitchers as of now.
How much of that has to do with some of the stacks on this slate?
It has a lot to do with the stacks. It also has something to do with the fact that you look at the pitchers that are the most expensive. Ronaldo Lopez, Shota Imanaga. I don't really love the matchups for either of these guys. Then you've also got Mitch Keller. He's very expensive. And then when you look at George Kirby and Brady Singer, who are reasonably priced and are in good matchups, I think the ownership is too high on these guys as of right now. So it's kind of that combined with some of the stacks.
Yeah, you've got Stripling on the mound, Flexen, a few other guys that we'll dig into. I'm sure you've looked at this already, and I'm sure some of you guys, that utilize the tools like the top stacks and top pitchers tool have seen this, but top stack probability on this slate is really, really flat, Greg. Like there's nobody above 7%. And that's Houston against Ross Stripling. It's extremely flat.
Yeah, and then a lot of those teams that do have some of the top stack odds are very expensive teams, which also goes into me preferring some of the cheaper starting pitchers. So we do have the Nationals towards the top of the top stacks. Well, they are inexpensive, but you got the Houston Astros, they're pretty expensive. The Dodgers, they're pretty expensive. The Padres, they are also pretty expensive. So as a result, I'm trending more towards these cheaper pitchers that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into it. So when you say cheaper pitchers, are you referring to a 33% owned Randy Vasquez against Colorado here?
Or he's one of them.
Okay.
He's one of them. Good piece of chalk, in my opinion.
I think so too. It's, you know what? Doesn't even matter if it's at Coors anymore. Like some of those Coors games have just seen wildly low totals. But yes, Vasquez in this spot, massive. They're minus 218 on the money line, Greg. Like it's a huge favorite. Colorado, 3.4 implied total on this slate. Vasquez is really, really discounted. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't he coming off a pretty decent start against the Cubs last time out, or did he end up getting knocked around? I only went 4 1/3. I thought he went longer, but he was pretty good. Yeah, I think you're right. As far as good chalk goes, tough to get away from that at 6K flat.
Yeah, so the concern that I would have about Randy Vasquez is just how deep is he going to work into the game? Because we've now seen him make 3 starts this year. He's not gone past 5 innings in any of them. His last 2 starts, he went 4 1/3 innings last time out against the Cubs. The time before, 2 2/3 innings against the Rockies. So you do get a little bit concerned, like how deep is he going to be able to work into the game? The flip side of that, though, he's the 3rd cheapest pitcher on the entire DraftKings slate. We do him with a 26% chance to be the top 2 value pitcher on the slate, which is by far the highest mark of any pitcher we've going. It's nearly double what pretty much any other pitcher is. And just the matchup is so good against the Colorado Rockies. It's also going to be the Rockies outside of Coors Field. So we could actually see Randy Vasquez go out and pitch 4 innings, and maybe he goes 4 innings, has 5 strikeouts, gives up 1 run at his price point. That's probably enough to be good.
What about Spencer Arrighetti? Because he's getting some love, low 7K price point. The Oakland A's, you're the one that pointed this out a week or two ago. They haven't been that bad. Now they're not good, right? This is, this isn't a playoff roster. This isn't a top tier caliber roster by any stretch of the imagination. It still makes for a good matchup. And against righties, they have the 4th highest strikeout rate in the league. Do they have some power? Yes. Believe it or not, they're 159. you probably knew this, but they have a top 10 ISO versus righties this year. Like they actually do have some pop in those bats. Arrighetti in the 5 starts he's made has allowed some power, but I think the strikeouts here can kind of make up for any of that. And it's tough to get away from a guy at that price point, which I think is a more than reasonable price point, 7,200. Here's my thing. He's only getting 14% ownership. Like he actually is positively leveraged. I thought Arrighetti would be higher owned than he is today. Like I did not think, if you told me that Sean Manaea and Spencer Arrighetti would have at the same price, the same ownership, I wouldn't have believed you. And I think that changes throughout the day, honestly. I think we see some separation between Arrighetti and Manaea.
Yeah, A's offense has not been bad this year against right-hand pitching, like you said, but it's not like they're world beaters either. It's just, it's so much different than what the expectation was that it feels like they're better than they are. The A's have a 102 WRC plus against right-hand pitching. It's like right about at league average. League average is 100 WRC plus. So when you see a team that's expected to be bad and then their league average, it might seem like, oh my God, this offense has been good. They've been average, but the bar was so low for them that it feels like they've been better than an average offense. And then if you look at the strikeout rate, which you also referenced, 25.6% against right-hand pitching. So you've got an offense that has not been terrible, but they do swing and miss and strike out a whole bunch. And they're going up against a pitcher in Arrighetti, who that's all he does is get strikeouts. He's been dog shit this year. He's been terrible. He gives up hard contact. He gives up runs, but he generates a lot of strikeouts. And that's where it's easy to see a path to upside for Spencer Arrighetti, a pitcher who has, let's see, what's the strikeout rate? A cheap price point, 23.6%. So overall per 9 innings, striking out 10.5 hitters per 9 innings. And then you got an offense that swing and misses when they're not getting on base a whole bunch. So it's not hard to see the upside for Arrighetti. There's a downside too. He's got an 8.44 ERA, a 5.67 expected ERA. I think it makes a whole lot of sense to stack against Arrighetti in tournaments, as well as play him in tournaments, because everything's cheap in this game. If Arrighetti has a decent start, it's going to come from strikeouts. If the A's have a decent game, it's going to be coming from power. So I think this is a good spot to be targeting.
Also, one other thing, and all of totally valid points. We can't pretend that he's been good. Hell, the Houston rotation in large part has struggled. A lot of these guys just haven't lived up to the expectations. But how about this? The fact that, what did you say? What did you say his swinging strike rate was?
Let's see. Arrighetti's swinging strike rate.
I can get to it. I thought you had it pulled up. 13%.
Yeah. It is a 12.8%. Solid.
Yeah. Solid, especially when you consider he's faced the Yankees, Cleveland, Cubs, Atlanta, and Kansas City. Kansas City has the second lowest K rate versus righties. Cleveland has the third lowest. The Yankees have the fifth lowest. Those are a bunch of spots where there are not a lot of strikeouts in those lineups, and he's still gone out there and given us decent numbers in those spots. So I'll take my chances. I'll take my chances on, by the way, not easy matchups either, just from an overall like quality of matchup, not just strikeouts. I'll take my chances that he gets a decent spot here if he's going to be 14%. Like, I don't know about you. I prefer him over Sean Manaea, who's facing Philadelphia.
Yeah, I have way more exposure to Arrighetti than I do to Manaea.
What about Christopher Sanchez? The strikeout stuff is there, but he feels a bit overowned in this spot against the Mets.
I'm pretty close to in line with the field with Christopher Sanchez on my first run here. And earlier in the year, he was somebody who was like crazy popular on a bunch of slates, and then the field kind of cooled on him. But he's been another one of these Phillies pitchers that's been really solid. He has a 3.22 ERA, 3.64 expected ERA, 21.4% K rate. He's got a matchup against the Mets, which, you know, it's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible, though. But you just got another one of these Philadelphia Phillies pitchers that's been pretty solid this year. I just don't have any kind of real strong take. He's in 20% of the field's lineups. I currently have Sanchez in 17% of lineups. He's a good source of salary saving, $7,900. He allows us to get up to some of those offenses that we briefly talked about before that we want to be playing. It's just the ownership is more or less fair to me.
Agreed. And now here's another guy. Are you getting, because this price range, I'd say it's, in a way, it's a little ugly. There's some guys there, but just not in the greatest spots. None of them really pulling much ownership, like Tanner Bybee against Texas. Man, if you played Bybee the other day, things were looking real good after the first like inning and you know what I'm referencing, right? I think he
Yeah.
struck out the first 4 batters he faced and then just completely unraveled. You have him at 84 against Texas. You have Eflin against Boston, Cutter Crawford against Tampa at Fenway, and then Gavin Stone against San Francisco in a good park. And San Francisco has one of the lowest totals. Actually, matter of fact, let me rephrase that. They have the lowest total of any team on the slate right now, below the Rockies, below the Oakland Athletics. He's been good. Now, his strikeout stuff is not, it's not there. Like, he has a 17% strikeout rate on the season. He's getting 12% swinging strikes, which is fine. But they're huge money line favorites in a pitcher friendly park. Is Gavin Stone worth the 8,100?
So one thing we, as a side note on this, it's not clear who's starting for the Dodgers today. It is either going to be Gavin Stone or Yamamoto. I haven't seen anything official yet, though. So just something to add to the mix here. What is actually the price?
The official MLB site does have Stone right now. That's why I have it up there.
Yeah, and we have Stone in our projections right now as well, but I haven't seen anything definitive about who it is that's going to be starting for the Dodgers. If I had to guess, Stone's probably the most likely one, but let me see what the price point is on Yamamoto if he does end up being the starter. Yamamoto, by the way, DraftKings has Yamamoto listed as the probable starter now. Yamamoto is 10,500. I would like him a lot as a pay up option if he does end up getting confirmed as the starter for the Dodgers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I went with Stone here is because MLB official site still has Stone. But you know what? Maybe it isn't. Maybe we just don't know. So, I mean, you can hit on both of them. We'll have live before lock tonight, so it's not a big deal one way or the other.
Yeah, so I hope it's Yamamoto just because I like him a lot as a pitcher, and it'd be a good spot for him on the road against the Giants. Yamamoto also has been terrific, particularly if you take his first start of the year out of the mix where he was starting in that weird Korea game. But if Gavin Stone is going to be the starter, not somebody I would have all that much interest in. He's $8,100 for Stone is a little bit of a steep price point. And then also, if you look at the career numbers for Stone, he's not somebody who I think is particularly good. His results this year have been okay. He has a 3.55 ERA, 4.01 expected ERA, but he only has a 17% strikeout rate. Last year, he had a 14.5% K rate. So I don't know what the realistic upside is for a pitcher who now has a career strikeout rate of 15%. That's somewhat expensive at $8,100.
Yeah, it is. I'm not in love with that. I'd rather pay the premium on Yamamoto, honestly. And I think you were saying as much. Man, on FanDuel, Christopher Sanchez, 8,800 is the third highest owned pitcher behind Singer at 93, Kirby at 94. Ownership's really spread out there. Like Ronaldo Lopez getting 9%, Imanaga at 10,000 getting 9%, Stone, if he starts, 7,900 getting 6%, Manaea getting 6%. How willing are you to go cheap on FanDuel on a day like today? Because you mentioned, I'm getting cheap pitchers on DraftKings for sure. And it's 2-pitcher site. How willing are you to go cheap on FanDuel for a single pitcher site today?
Yeah, so the reason I am definitely willing to go cheap on FanDuel is Randy Vasquez is only 7,000 against the Colorado Rockies, and he's low owned at 5%. So the one thing that does make Vasquez a little bit riskier on FanDuel is on DraftKings. He could have a good start if he goes 4 innings and still land in an optimal lineup. He needs to go at least 5 innings on FanDuel to be qualified for that win bonus, which is really important over there. Ideally, you'd want to get 6 innings out of him so you get the quality start, but that's most likely off the table for Vasquez. Because it is such an easy matchup against the Rockies, I am hopeful that he could get through 5, at least hopeful enough to the point that at 7K and with him only being projected for 5% ownership, it's a good contrarian play. I'd be a lot more nervous to play Randy Vasquez on FanDuel at 7K if he was like 20% owned, but that's not the case. People aren't playing him there.
What about $7,300 Arrighetti at 2% owned?
Also viable. I do slightly prefer Vasquez though.
Back to DraftKings. This won't make anybody feel good, but we got to talk about him because he's pulling 3% at the same price as some of these other discounted options coming off. I feel like his best game ever, but let's be fair to the man. Trevor Williams has been pretty good this season. Okay. Trevor Williams has not been bad at all. And while he's not just going to blow by you, racking up 8 Ks like he did last game, but he has a 21% K rate this season. He's been he has a 50% ground ball rate. He's not giving up a ton of hard contact. You look across all of this, there's some red flags. Guy has an 8% swinging strike rate, 9% for his career. All right. So it's not like you're expecting anything there. I think we at least have to discuss if he really is 3% against the White Sox today. Would you entertain the idea of getting to some Trevor Williams with the White Sox having a sub 4 run implied total, and Washington on the road in this spot is actually a minus 142 money line favorite?
Probably not for me outside of like, if he showed up in a lineup or two, okay. I actually he's not in any of my top 150 lineups in my first run here, but we have so much sample on Trevor Williams being terrible. He's 32 years old. He's been in the big leagues for a long time. As bad as he's been, teams keep giving him more opportunities. And also his numbers get a little bit skewed, and they're already bad, but they're actually skewed to be a little bit better than they are because he split time in the big leagues between being a starter and a reliever. As a starter, he's an 18% career strikeout rate. He's a 4.69 FIP, a 4.71 xFIP. And while this year, so far he's been pretty solid, it's really hard for me to think that that's going to be the case going forward. Last year, he had a 5.55 ERA, a 5.66 expected ERA, and that's more or less been what we could expect out of him when he's been a starting pitcher. So if he's going to stick in the starting rotation for the Nationals, which seems like it's going to be the case, I think the wheels are going to fall off soon.
Probably. He's been pretty good though. He's actually even like, he has a 2.48 FIP through 7 starts. He's been all right. He just doesn't miss bats. That's the problem. He doesn't miss enough bats. Good spot though. How often do you see Washington is a minus 142 money line favorite on the road, Greg? It's an uncommon occurrence for a team like that.
I mean, about as common as we only see the White Sox as a plus 112 underdog. That also doesn't happen all that often.
Jake said Fangraphs had a solid article on Trevor Williams. He added a sweeper and changed his pitch mix. I have 3%. Sign me up. Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I think I like it a little bit more than Greg does, honestly, because the wheels might not fall off. I mean, yeah, we have a good sample on this guy, no doubt. I think we also have a pretty reasonable sample on how bad that White Sox lineup is too, though. So
not great.
Yeah. So, by the way, and yes, you are right. Who said that? Boss Pro. Yeah, that game weather looks to be a serious concern too. So I mean, that game just might not even play. And then if that's the case, it won't matter. But there's a couple spots. I think that's really the only one that looks to be an issue. Aside from that, though, everything else looks to be perfectly fine, or at least trending in the right direction. We talked about a lot of pitchers so far. There's a lot of cheap options you can get to today. Are there any that we haven't touched on? Like Trevor Williams, again, just no ownership at all. I think it's reasonable. I don't think he's a priority, but I definitely think it's reasonable. Are there any of those guys out there that we haven't hit on?
Let me check no, there aren't any other pitchers I have double-digit exposure to. I know people are probably going to want to play Jose Soriano because he's going up against the Cardinals. I really do think the Cardinals offense, it's not going to be good going forward. I think it's going to be better than what it has been, though. I mean, they started off May. It was like Paul Goldschmidt went the first week. It was like Paul Goldschmidt, Dylan Carlson, like somebody else went the first week and a half in May without having a single hit. And I think now this Cardinals team is like wildly underrated. Once again, not they're going to be good, but people are acting like this is the worst offense in baseball. It's not going to be the case. Soriano's another pitcher, doesn't generate strikeouts. It's a 4.32 ERA, 4.6 expected ERA. So I think a lot of people are going to want to play Soriano as we get closer to lock, and I'm not going to really want to. I have 5% of him right now.
All right. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any. Oh, there is one more guy we have to talk about. No, I guess we already did. We talked about Singer and Kirby, both of them being up there. Yeah. I honestly think I like Singer a little bit more than Kirby. And I think you said you lean Kirby a little bit more than Singer today, right?
I'm underweight to both of them, but I do have slightly more exposure to Kirby.
Until that Seattle team figures out how to not strike out at a truly alarming clip, I think I'll still be very, very comfortable just throwing out good pitchers against them. Yes, they have power, but they're middle of the league in ISO against righties. It's not like they've been doing huge damage. They're 20th in ISO. They have a 95 WRC plus. That's probably what? In the bottom 10. Yeah, 21st. 29.1% K rate. If you go to Fangraphs, Greg, and I won't belabor the point, I think we all know this, and you just go by player stats and you look at these guys that have had, say, 60 plus plate appearances for Seattle, I think there's 6 of them with strikeout rates above 30% or something just outrageously high. I'm not saying it ends that way after 162 games, but my God, man, they strike out at a wildly high clip and way higher than anyone else in the league at this point. That's how bad it's been.
And let me check. Why's my computer dying? All right, whatever. I can't look at the Fangraphs numbers right now.
Muhammad said Michael Lorenzen. Yeah, probably not. Just in my opinion, just very little upside in a spot like this.
He's also on FanDuel. He's 8,400 on DraftKings. He's 7,400. He's also much more expensive than he should be. And you mentioned before, Lofty, about teams that don't strike out a whole bunch. The Guardians are one of those teams that have just not very many swing and misses in their lineup. That's been the case the last couple of years. They make a lot of contact. So I don't think there's very much upside in Michael Lorenzen. And it's a big slate. Keep in mind, anybody you roster, it's not just you need to get a serviceable start out of them. You also need them to outscore the players who are priced around them. And I don't think that's all that likely for Lorenzen.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's probably 3 guys beneath him that I'd rather play. Arrighetti, Randy Vasquez. I'd rather play Trevor Williams, I think, just given the matchup, given the strikeouts, given the terrible White Sox offense. I think we hit on everybody. We should get to some stacks here. Also, great. Got a little basketball promo going on. I know it's a baseball show, but not sure if you guys have poked around on DraftKings recently. The NBA contests are still massive. Like tonight, the shoot around's $100K to first, $400,000 prize pool, $50K to first in the alley-oop. How about this? The 4-point play, just to contrast this to baseball. So like baseball has the mini max, 150 max, which is awesome. I'm so glad they brought that back. You can put 150 entries in, Greg. It's $75,000 prize pool tonight. That's basically as high as they go. The mini max for a 2-game NBA slate is 100K. I'm sorry, not mini max. 20 max 4-point play is 100K prize pool. So like they just the showdown tonight is 100K to first, $300 prize pool. So we decided to do one more discount for the playoffs, one more promo if you guys finally want to jump in, because as you already know, the Sims tools, the boom bust tool, ownership, the projections, all that has been massive for our users over the course of the season. But I feel like, especially in the playoffs, it's just been an insane run. $19.99 for the entirety of the week. And guess what? Now that you've got, when is this up, by the way? When does this end?
Friday. This Friday is the last day.
So you've got 2 series already knotted up at 2. So that means we're going to continue to have a bunch of 2-game slates with these huge prize pools and the showdowns. And the fellas have been crushing the showdowns too with the Sims tool. It's just been really great to see. If you want to get in, check it out. This is Sims Max. Okay. Sims Max weekly, $19.99, meaning you get not just the Sims, the contest generator, the post contest simulator, but every other tool we have on the site, right? Projections, ownership, boom bust tool, premium Discord, lineup generator, across the board. You've got it all for NBA at $19.95. So yeah, Greg, running this through Friday, but it's nice to get all these 2-game slates. The prize pools aren't shrinking anytime soon.
Nope, no, and I thought that they might for the NBA playoffs, but it's like you said, it's the exact same. It's been pretty much the entire regular season. $400,000 prize pool, $100,000 to first.
Check it out. Less than $20. By the way, shout out to as always, a few of the fellas who over the weekend put up some pretty heroic scores around this way. Jordan, you can throw them up there. Shout out to all of these guys. I mean, you had, first off, Daniel Claybrook said tools and content never fails. Another awesome win. $3,000. Look, NBA shot. The 30K up top took $3,000, chopped first out of 12,000 people. And then Sean Geezy, no surprise here, took down the $100 single entry, finished second in the $3.20 max on DraftKings, just from the weekend too. And then thanks to the stochastic tools, took down the May 9th MLB slate. That's Eagle Nation. And he had another, look, where's the one more? Oh, there it is. Much love, guys. Hand build some for Greg, going back to the roots here. Corey hand built some lineups yesterday with the top stacks and top pitchers tool, a little 2K win in the MLB streets for Corey. Some people still hand build using those tools.
Yeah. And if you are just playing one lineup, I mean, that is a pretty reasonable way to build out your baseball lineups. So just looking at the top stacks tool, trying to figure out which offense might be under-owned, trying to figure out which pitchers might be a little bit under-owned. If you're just building one lineup, it's a totally reasonable way to build it.
For sure. Anyway, don't worry about the promo. It's already auto-loaded with the link in the description and in chat. If you click that, it'll take you there. You'll be set up. Get that discount and you're in business. Say hi in Discord too. Come hit us up. And if you have questions, hit Greg and I up. He's done some awesome tutorials on the Sims specifically that'll get you started. All right. Top stacks. Let's start it out this way. What is your highest exposed stack right now?
All right. So right now, it is actually the Cleveland Guardians, but this is also a slate where I have 11% of Cleveland right now. I'm really, really spread out with my offense stacks, which is kind of what the top stacks tool bears out as well. You brought it up earlier. There's not a single team that not only has double-digit chance of being the top scoring team. The highest mark we have on anybody is the Houston Astros at 7.5%. This is probably the most dispersed the top stack odds have been the entire season. A lot of teams are looking very similar.
Yeah, I'm not shocked by it because it's a 12-game slate, but I am a little bit surprised. Especially, we have no teams with double-digit ownership even. You have Washington against Chris Flexen at 9%. I did want to talk to you about that. 6.7% top stack probability. Look, Washington's been fine. Matter of fact, Washington recently has had a few days where they've actually been the top stack and they've won people tournaments. But whenever Washington is the highest owned stack, it can get a little bit squirrely there. The question really is like, how much should we be concerned about stack ownership when there's nobody pulling big ownership?
I have 9% of them, which is also almost exactly what the field has. I have 9.3% stacks of the Washington Nationals. We've been projected for 9.3% ownership. So it is like to the decimal point, the exact same amount that I have. And if you do look at their top stack odds, they're a little bit overowned just in terms of their odds being a top scoring team, but they have really good value odds because it's a really cheap stack. So one thing that is nice, if you stack the Nationals, you could combine them with safer starting pitching like George Kirby and like, let's see, what do I have in? Yeah, I'm getting to a good amount of, it looks like Kirby and Singer in those national stacks. So that's the one benefit. If you're going to a stack like Oakland or Washington, you could actually pay up and get to some of those stud starting pitchers. It's going to be a somewhat popular build, particularly with the Nationals though.
By the way, in my initial Sims run, and I went 10% to first. So like, what did you do? 25 or 30?
20%.
20. All right. So I went 10. Figure for the mini maxers out there playing in the 10% to first. Let's see what we get. I did get a lot of 5-man stack exposure to Washington. I also got more Spencer Arrighetti than any other pitcher. So that's interesting on a slate like this. Looking at the other exposures, like Cleveland, some San Diego, but it's really flat after Washington. Looking at like 3-man stack exposures, I have Houston at 12% because they're expensive. Nobody else above 4%. 4-man stack exposures, Washington at 13%. So clearly the highest. Nobody else above 4%. And then outside of Washington 5-man stacks, I have nobody else above 9%. Really, really spread out here. So I think, you and me being on the strategy show right now, just looking at this, what are maybe some either contrarian or leverage spots that you like that aren't getting a lot of attention? Maybe pitchers that can go out there and hurl a gem, but also get tuned up on any given start.
Yeah, leverage is a little bit hard for this slate because there's only 3 pitchers that are picking up significant ownership. It's George Kirby. I'm not interested in stacking against him. It's Brady Singer. I'm not all that interested in stacking against him with the Seattle Mariners. And then you got Randy Vasquez, who's clearly the weakest of those 3 starting pitchers, but I don't really want to stack the Colorado Rockies because they're the Colorado Rockies and they're away from Coors Field. So as far as leverage goes, it's kind of hard to find a stack from that perspective. If I had to pick the highest owned pitcher to attack that I think is the most upside against him, it is Arrighetti. I get to a lot of Arrighetti as a pitching option, but like we were talking about before a pitcher, I think it makes sense to play both sides of it. You're not getting all that much leverage because he is only 14% owned. There's a little bit of ownership going to Oakland, but Arrighetti's clearly not been very good this year. He's just somebody who has fantasy upside because he's able to generate strikeouts. So once again, just to rehash a point from before, if Arrighetti has a good game, it's going to be with strikeouts. So he's likely to have a really good fantasy game, but he gives up a lot of runs. He's an 8.44 ERA, a 5.67 expected ERA. This guy was a completely unranked prospect who also wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire in the minor leagues. Last year in AAA, a 4.64 ERA, a 5.36 FIP. So the Oakland A's are a team that I think presents a good value spot, a little bit of leverage because there's ownership going to Arrighetti. And then also you could get them as a pivot off of the Nationals, who are the more popular value stack.
I think you're right. I mean, I like both. Matter of fact, the other day I had, who was it? Who started for Miami? Not yesterday, but the day before.
Luzardo.
Dude, my highest owned pitcher was Luzardo. My highest owned stack was the Phillies that day. And that was with the Sims. Right. And it just turned out that, like, in a ton of these non-Luzardo lineups, I had a lot of Phillies, and Luzardo ended up being solid and the Phillies ended up getting some runs late. But I think this could be one of those spots where you get to a lot of Arrighetti and you also get to a good amount going against Arrighetti. I don't think that's crazy to get some Oakland here. Any interest in Arizona against Ashcraft? They have really struggled in over 1,000 plate appearances versus righties this year.
Yeah, Ashcraft is not good at all. He's a pitcher that I really like stacking against for a couple of reasons. Most notably, like I said before, not a particularly good pitcher. He also ends up making a lot of starts in Cincinnati, which is a very hitter-friendly ballpark. And I know this game is on the road in Arizona, but that also could play as a hitter-friendly ballpark when the weather heats up. But you look at Ashcraft's numbers for his career, the biggest thing is just the guy gives up home runs. He's got a 14.8% home run to fly ball rate. For his career, he has a 4.68 ERA, a 4.63 FIP. So far this year, he is having the best start to the season of any year he's had, but still, it's a 3.86 ERA, 4.13 expected ERA. Every single projection site is projecting this guy to have an ERA right around 5 for the rest of the season. So you got an Arizona Diamondbacks team. Corbin Carroll is starting to look a little bit healthier right now. The shoulder hasn't seemed to be bothering him quite as much in recent games. And the ball is going to be put in play against Ashcraft. He has never been a guy who generates very many swing and misses. You look at his recent starts, for example, 2 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts, 3 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts. He could touch 100 miles per hour with his cutter, but it just doesn't generate any swing and misses. So there are, 4 stacks that I have around 10% of. They are the Nationals, the Guardians, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres. Those 4 offenses are the ones I have the most of.
Okay. Yeah, and it's really hard to look at any and go like, oh, they're massively over-owned. I'm not getting to any of that because nobody's that owned. The ones that I'm getting the most of here, 5-man stacks, Washington, Cleveland, San Diego, Arizona.
Yep. Same as me.
4-man exposures, Washington, Oakland, Cleveland, Houston, and then 3-man stacks. A little bit less important here. It's really just Houston, and then everything is between 1% and 4% outside of that. So nothing really to differentiate there. I will say, interesting though, that I'm getting, and I want to know where you're at on like 3- and 4-man Houston stacks, because they're expensive against Stripling, but I have 12% 3-man Houston stacks, only 3% 4-man, but it looks like I'm getting a lot of, I won't even call it filler 3-mans because they're expensive, but a lot of 3-man exposure to Houston here, whereas you're probably just getting a lot of the expensive bats, rounding it out with a couple cheap arms, and maybe another cheaper stack as well. Probably a lot of Washington and Oakland and such.
Yeah, so Houston, there are two teams I get a lot of as secondary stacks. One of them is the Houston Astros. The other is the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Astros offense has to be better going forward. It just can't be this bad. Guys like Yordan Alvarez going to start hitting. And there have been individuals like Altuve's had a pretty good start to the season. Jeremy Pena's had a pretty good start to the season. Bregman's been one of the worst hitters in baseball. Yordan's had a down year. Things are going to turn around for them sooner rather than later. These guys can't be this bad going forward. But like you said, they're actually kind of priced up. Like Kyle Tucker's been one of the best hitters in baseball individually, and he's gotten to be very expensive now. So it is a little bit difficult to make 5-man stacks of them. In the same way, it's kind of hard to make 5-man stacks of the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's been the same issue all year for me, getting to the Dodgers against Jordan Hicks. I think Hicks is going to regress going forward. But as far as 3-man stacks go, the Astros, the Dodgers, both teams be overweight too as secondary options.
This should tell you all you need to know right now. And it's kind of exactly as I anticipated. 43% Kyle Tucker for me, 23% Yordan Alvarez, 20% Altuve. So, just 3 of their best bats, getting a lot of them, not getting a lot of 5-man Houston exposure. It's pretty much that simple. All right. Anybody else you want to hit on? Any other teams, players, stacks, pitchers that we haven't done? Any strategy you want to dive into, whether it's from the Sims tool, any other tools, or just some of your own thoughts before we get out of here for the morning?
No, I mean, as far as slates go with this size, the thing I don't really like that much about them is there isn't as much strategy involved because there's no real chalk. There's no real crazy chalk pitching options or anything. We've got one pitcher on the entire slate that's over 30% owned, and there's not a single offense that's more than 10% owned. So these slates become much more of just playing the spots that you guys individually think are best, because there is no pronounced chalk where we're thinking about like leverage or game theory in the same way we do on a lot of other slates.
Oh, one thing before we go, by the way, $100 first match deposit bonus on Underdog. I put the video out every day over on OddsShopper. Best pick and plays for the day. We got Kyrie Irving in the mix today. We got PJ Washington. Yeah, we got Derek White as well. They got $15 million best ball going on. By the way, it's instant deposit bonus match. So if you put 100 in, you have 200 out of the gate. They've got the daily drafts for all of these sports. They've got the huge best ball contest. They have pick 'em, particularly for you guys in non-legal betting states. These are massive spots to attack. I absolutely love it. I will say, just my whole Twitter feed now is inundated with people tweeting out like best ball results in early May, Greg. Like best ball lineups in early May. I don't need to see that.
I mean, I don't need to see it in week 1 of the NFL season either, but I know I'm going to see it.
Yeah, I love it. I love doing it. I just don't need to see all that in May, but gonna be getting some drafts in. Either way, check it out. You guys will love it over there. Up to 100 extra money. They have like 4,000 different formats that you can play. I'm exaggerating because it's not actually overly complicated at all. You want to do pick 'em, you want to do daily drafts, you want to do best ball. Those 3, the biggest ones out there, you'll love them. You're probably there already. You have to be. But yeah, first match up to $100, instant. Link in the description and in chat. Check it out. Jump in some drafts. Go tweet your lineups. Go tweet your first best ball draft lineups. I'm sure people will be thrilled. We'll see you guys back here for the next one. Hey, Greg, they can follow you at G Ehrenberg DFS. You're on Live Before Lock tonight?
Yep, I will be on MLB with Belman. Then NBA is going to be Eric and Josh, and then playback show. It'll be Josh and I hanging out again.
Yeah, man. Back on playback. Come check it out. It's free. It's fun. It's a blast. We'll see you back here soon. At Lafayette_D on Twitter, by the way. Shout out to Jordan for producing. Have a great rest of the day, guys. We'll see you tonight. Peace.